Support for the Common Knowledge podcast is brought to you by puremtgo.com. You can support the show personally by going to patreon.com/common knowledge. And you can email the show at commonknowledgemtg@gmail.com.
This is Common Knowledge, a Magic the Gathering podcast about improving at the game with a focus on pauper play. It's not about the cost, it's about the knowledge. Welcome to Common Knowledge. Here are your hosts, Brandon Clark and Lobbert. Enjoy this week's episode of Common Knowledge.
Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. This is episode 33 of Common Knowledge. I'm your host, Brandon Clark, and joined with me is Sean, the Lobbert.
Yes, Queen.
How you been?
Good. It's been 2 weeks since we recorded a show.
It has been. It was nice to have a week off.
Yeah, my life is like a disarray now, it feels like.
I almost forgotten about recording today, to be honest. It was just like, am I supposed to do something on Monday night? I can't remember.
I don't have a job.
Oh my gosh. I was talking to my mom yesterday about that. I was just like, I need to get a job. Being a stay-at-home parent is so hard. Oh my gosh. It's so hard.
So we kind of started into it, but how are you?
Good. Doing really good. I'm excited for this episode because it's my favorite episode. Power Rankings episodes.
Such a spike.
I just like seeing the data in front of me, you know? Plus, like, even if it wasn't the number one deck, I would still probably just be playing Scred Delver. So it's not like I'm using the data to just, like, what's the number one deck every month? I'm going to play that deck. Like, if Boros was the top deck, I don't know that I could play over and over week after week with Boros.
Like, yeah, that's fair, because I know you have, like, a love affair with Delver. Would you play Delver without Delver?
I might just go to Tribe at that point, honestly. But I mean, I don't know, like fairies, just playing blue-red fairies would still probably be a great deck, and I would probably still like it a lot.
Okay.
But I don't know. Like, it's weird because, like, I kind of still think that Delver of Secrets should get banned in this format. Yeah. But at the same time, I really like playing with Delver of Secrets.
Well, yeah. But a lot of people like playing with the banned cards if they're the ones using them and their opponent's not, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I can dream about Treasure Cruise all the time, man. Like, really, I did not care when Treasure Cruise was legal in all the formats. I just played Treasure Cruise in every format, and I loved every second of it. Like, I didn't care. We can all play the same deck. I don't care.
Well, I guess there's two kinds of people.
All right. Well, anyway, we've got a cool show for you guys. We've got a July Power Rankings, so we're going to jump on into it. But first, we're going to start with the what are we playing this week? So, Sean, what are you playing?
I finally got around to jamming a bunch of games with Stompy, and I think my conclusion after playing it for a bit is I don't like playing meta decks, which I knew. I feel like there should be more power in something that's so like widely accepted as a good deck compared to my brews, but I do so much better with my brews. Like, I gotta say, I don't like the direction personally that Stompy has gone. If I were to play the deck, I would probably take out maybe 3 elephant guides, go down to 1. That's because of my play style. I'm not saying people should do that. That's just I miss the mutagenic growth.
Yeah, I can understand that. Well, so like I'm going to talk about this a little bit in my section, but I think I came to the conclusion of why I hate Stompy. And it's just because it leads to a lot of non-games. The games that Stompy wins, your opponent kind of didn't really have a chance. And the games that Stompy loses, you never really had a chance. And cards like Elephant Guide and Solana Ledgewalker just contribute to that, where you're not really playing Magic. You're sort of just flipping a coin. You're saying, okay, hopefully you can't deal with my creature when I put Elephant Guide on it, make it big. There's just, and maybe this is just my lack of experience with actually playing the deck, because I've not played it very much.
Yeah.
But just being on the other side of it, it just feels like every time I'm playing against Stompy, they either just run me over. I had no chance, nothing I could do. Changed it because I was on the draw, and had an Evolving Wilds Ash Barrens draw, and they played Ledgewalker on turn 2 and then Elephant Guide on turn 3, and I just, okay, well, I don't win this game now. Doesn't matter how good I play or what decisions I make, I'm going to lose now because of the context of my draw.
And that actually reminds me of, I went and did a modern 1K, and I was just playing Affinity, and I was looking around the room and kind of just feeling out the format after being away from it for like a year or more. And
longer than that.
Yeah.
It's probably been like 2 years since the last time I remember you playing Modern.
Yeah, and I was actually doing really well. Like, it's not that different. Like, I'm just playing Affinity.
Modern was your format before you started playing Pauper. Like when we were both starting to get into the realm of competitive Magic, and I was still playing mostly Standard, you started jumping into Modern just before Modern Masters 1 even came out. You were the one in our group jamming Modern games, and then it was your format.
Yeah, and it turns out I'm still pretty good at it, but it's felt like everyone in the room was just trying to sit down, play a non-game of Magic, and walk away with a win. Like, it didn't feel like people were interacting, and I'm kind of starting to identify as a mid-range player. I like killing creatures and playing kind of oversized things. Like, that's what I'm starting to just love in Magic, or even to the point where I'm playing Control, where I used to be super fast Blitz. Like, I built Affinity. There was a reason for that. I wanted a really good game plan, and now I just want to kill a bunch of stuff. And
well, you're confident in your decisions.
Yeah, and that feels absent from Modern. I won't say it's completely absent because I can't speak with enough authority, but that's what it felt like when I started playing Stompy. It was like, oh no, I'm doing this in the format I love. I gotta stop doing this. So I think I might step away from Stompy again.
Yeah.
But it was nice to get a little taste and see where the deck is at, and my feelings were reflected in the power rankings, I feel like. But
yeah.
What did you play this week?
So this week I played I did play Scred this week, but what am I playing? I did put it. I'm going to talk about Blue Black Alchemy a little bit, just because at Oasis Games I played at the Tuesday night Pauper tournament, and the only loss I had was to Stompy, and that was sort of just the context of the games. We played. He beat me 2-0, and it was just kind of like I mulliganed a game, was struggling to keep up with my mana. And he just kind of resolved the Ledgewalker, put an Elephant Guide on a creature, just nothing I could do to win the game. And we played a bunch of games outside of that match. And I won probably like 70% of the other testing games we played. And like I said, it was just every single game that I won, it just felt like there's no way I can lose this game. This deck is a pile of garbage. And then the games that it won, I just was like, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
Nothing I do matters. The mulligan decisions I make, what land I play, none of my decisions are going to make a difference because you just got the God draw with Stompy. And I think that's why I hate that deck so much. It's not that it's overpowered or good or too good or whatever. It's just that it's one of the few decks in this format that leads to non-games of Pauper.
And I'll make sure that we're being clear that we're not calling this a skillless deck, because there's a lot of skill in knowing when to vines proactively or defensively and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to know how to sequence and get the most out of your mana, and that's all something that is not necessarily intuitive to a player, that they could just pick up this deck and get free wins. You've got to be able to play it right, but if you're playing it right and you're competent, there are hands that are just going to create just non-games where neither player's decisions really matter.
Yeah.
Because, as long as you do it correctly, you're going to win no matter what your opponent does.
Yeah, and I wasn't getting very many of those, so I wasn't really enjoying the games. Like, I was working for all of them where it was like, I got to trick him into killing a guy so that I can hunger here. And then I'm really thinking, like, can I hunger here? And I'll talk about it more when we actually get into the power rankings, but anything else?
Yeah, I kind of want to talk about the white heroic deck, because that took down yesterday's challenge. Oh, yeah. So I guess I'm eating my words.
What words?
I don't know, because I don't think that deck's necessarily good.
Yeah, okay. You don't got to eat words based on one result, right?
Yeah, and probably not. But I think I do kind of want to jam some leagues with white heroic and kind of figure out what's going on. And I don't know, maybe I'm just dead wrong about this deck. I know that, like, Laguna Band Trailblazer, that's the one thing about this deck that I just absolutely think is bonkers.
Yeah.
I think that card is really, really good. And if you can play it on turn 1, I think you're going to win a really high percentage of games that you make that card on turn 1. It's really hard to kill.
I think
there's not a lot of edict effects going on right now, and so
I've got my power rankings brain in right now, and I want to save that for the main topic.
Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna jam some games with heroic, and I'm gonna try to figure out if, like, was this just a flash in the pan, or am I just wrong about this deck and it's actually got something to it? But I don't know. It still kind of falls into the realm of free wins decks,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is like we just kind of crapped on one, and then we're like mono white heroic, which is basically the same thing. Like,
well, I'm gonna crap on every deck that does that, because I hate the reason I don't play Modern anymore, and the reason I hate Modern and don't think it should be a pro format, I don't think it should be a PPTQ format or a GP format, is this reason. Everyone wants to sit down and play coin flips, because I have a better chance of winning a game when it's 50-50 than I do of sitting down and just being better than my opponent. And I feel like Stompy and Heroic, these are all decks that attribute to that. So I wasn't necessarily pooping on Stompy as much as I was just saying why I don't like it in the format. I think it's a fine deck.
Yeah.
I kind of want to figure out if Heroic is on the same vein as Stompy.
Okay.
Because right now I think that Heroic isn't. I think that it's not a good deck relative to the rest of the tier decks in this format. But I want to figure out if it is. But I'm always going to hate these decks, because I'm playing Pauper because I love playing games of Magic.
Yeah.
Where my decisions matter. And the more that this format gets competitive, the more I worry that we're just going to have this where people are just going to pick up the most uninteractive deck they can find and just try to win a coin toss.
I think it's really hard to just... I think the format doesn't support that as much. There's too much good interaction and not enough broken things.
That's kind of my hope.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna jam some games with Heroic, and I'm gonna see if I can get to the bottom of, like, is this deck actually good, or is it just gonna, is it coming down to, like, how many Laguna Band Trailblazers do I draw? What is it? I wanna kind of figure it out.
Okay.
All right, well, let's move on and get into our card of the week before we start power rankings. So, Sean, you picked this one out for us. Do you want to tell us what it is?
It's Gray Merchant of Asphodel. And I don't know if I'm saying that last word right, but that's what I'm going with. So it's
Asphodel. Asphodel. Asphodel?
Yeah. Okay.
I
like Asphodel. Okay, anyway, it's 3 black, so 5 converted mana cost for a 2/4 zombie that when it enters the battlefield, you leech life from your opponent equal to the number of black symbols you control.
Wow, this card's basically Phyrexian Obliterator.
Yeah, it's basically Phyrexian Obliterator, everyone. You can go
Just
on
for the
Twitter
record,
and tell me that I'm right.
but I think that's the rule, right? We're supposed to compare cards in Pauper to the overpowered cards that are nothing like it.
Yeah, we draw correlations where there are none just to make people mad. So, okay, we're talking about Phyrexian Obliterator. I mean, Grey Merchant. Sorry, got them mixed up again.
They're basically the same thing.
So this is a zombie. This is essentially the best zombie in Pauper. Debate me. Like, there's a couple of other decent ones, but Grey Merchant, I think in our common knowledge, or not common knowledge, that's us, color commentary episode, he meant, or the...
I mean, that was a common knowledge episode.
It was both of our episodes. I don't remember which one of them said that Wizards has called this a mistake. I don't know where people get these Wizards quotes because I don't listen to Wizards enough to get them, but
I don't know if I've ever heard. I guess maybe Wizards said it during that standard, when that standard was basically mono black and blue white elixir of immortality control. I mean, they might have come out and said that was a mistake in the context of that standard format, but
it feels really strong for a common card for sure. I love that it has 2 black symbols on it, like, by itself. So without anything else, which is so rare, this is leeching 2 life. And that's a respectable card. A 2/4 is a pretty good body in Pauper.
Yeah. I could also see how this card is a mistake in the sense that a lot of the cards that Wizards have deemed mistakes or have been banned are cards that basically reward players for just playing spells. Like, there's no opportunity cost of putting this card in a deck. You know, like Treasure Cruise. Like, there's no opportunity cost of putting 4 Treasure Cruise in your deck because you're just going to get rewarded for casting spells. So I'm just going to cast all these spells, and then I'm going to get Treasure Cruise. And in Mono Black, it's like, I'm going to play all these cards that I'm going to play anyway. I'm going to play my Kumbaj Witches and my Chittering Rats, and I'm going to deadweight your guy, and I'm just going to... These are all spells that I'm casting anyway because I'm playing Mono Black, and then at no cost for me, I'm going to play Grey Merchant too. You know? There's not really a deck building constraint outside of being Mono Black.
But another mistake, I think, or the other reason I think that they would call this a mistake is it disincentivizes trading and attacking and, like, playing Magic. Like, you just sit there and wait for your next Grey Merchant to hit your hand so that you can just hit them for 9 when you play it. You're not going to block, you're not going to attack. Like, you're only going to attack when it's free, and, like, both of those things are probably problematic, but that's what makes it a good card is you don't have to do anything. It's going to catch you back up because you didn't block all those times, then you're just miles ahead.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you said, that's what you want. You know, you're looking to clog up the board state. You're looking to just shut down as many creatures your opponent has, create a huge board stall, cast a Grey Merchant, win the game.
Yeah. So I want to focus in on the devotion. Like, that's basically what we're talking about, of, like, you want to keep as many black symbols on the field as possible. So when you're playing against, like, Mono Black Control, which is, like, the premier deck that actually plays this card, some of your decisions in killing creatures are how many black symbols does it have on it, with which almost ends up always being Chittering Rats, and it's that or Kumbaj Witches. And if you kill the Chittering Rats, you don't know if they have a reanimation spell, so there's an incentive and a disincentive for choosing that card, which makes a really complex decision for your opponent, and you're just playing good cards. Chittering Rats is an amazing card. So this card's basically the reason Oubliette is played. It has black symbols on it, and it's a removal spell. You were saying that you basically play cards, like, just playing any spell helps with Grey Merchant. It's not entirely true because they have to be permanents. And so you're turning your 2-mana kill spell into a 3-mana kill spell for 2 extra black pips. And that ends up being worth it. And Oubliette ends up being an expensive card. I don't think you play Deadweight at all, unless there's 2 cases you play Deadweight. 1, you want an extra black pip on the field. And 2, you want, what's his name? Atog to die. Because otherwise you just play Disfigure. It's just better because it's instant speed. They cost the same. Like, they do the same thing. It's just one sticks around. That's almost entirely irrelevant, except for Grey Merchant.
Right. And in a lot of cases, too, the things that you want to deadweight are things that will just die immediately anyway. So the deadweight's probably not going to stick around. I mean, unless you're using your deadweights to, like, win Gurmag Angler Wars or something, you know?
Yeah. But other than that, it's just like, you want a huge clogged board state that your opponent can't attack into, and you're not interested in attacking, because you can just top deck Gary, which I don't know if we've mentioned, that's like his funny little name, his nickname that people have come up with. And the last thing I want to talk about is that life gain is giant. Like, gaining, it's usually 6. I think 6 or more is where Gary usually ends up being, and that just flat out stabilizes you most of the time. If it's more, then you're either winning the game or you're out of reach. So this card is a house.
It's a good card, that's for sure. So should we just get into the power rankings then?
Yeah.
Power rankings.
Nice.
That was our music.
We'll get real music eventually.
That was real music. I'm an artist.
Yeah, and you have a real singing voice. Moving on!
Don't even give me a chance to defend my singing voice?
No. So for this month's power rankings, there were 5 weeks, which threw off the numbers because that just means there's an extra week and it just gets that many more points. So we times all of the points. Sorry, we multiplied all of the points by 4/5, and I think that's right. I'm not a math major. I don't even have a bachelor's degree, so
that's probably right. So we did that, and the numbers look a lot more in line with what they have been, a little more consistent than like these huge numbers that are going to make no sense, except for that July just randomly has a 5th weekend in it. So we had 5 challenges instead of 4.
So should we just get right into it?
Yeah, I guess so.
So in number 1...
Should we just skip number 1?
No!
We all know what it is.
Yeah, it's Cred Delver.
Yeah, 51 points.
Which...
No one's surprised.
That's what I had 2 months ago, so it's up 4 points from last month. So it's just about hovering where it's at.
Yeah, and I mean it's steady, and it's not even like it's close. You know, I mean, like, second place is closer than it has been in the past, but it's still a big gap.
Yeah,
there's still a big jump. The other thing too is that Scred doesn't have the best finishes. It does have a lot of top 8 finishes, like good finishes.
Mm-hmm.
But most of them are just top 32 finishes. You know, they'll finish, you know, somewhere 18 to 32nd place or 10th place or 12th place. Whereas a lot of these other decks that are a lot less represented are just having really high finishes. So I think that is actually interesting.
I feel like it feels really consistent. Maybe just a lot of people are playing it. But
I think that just a lot of people play it in these challenges.
We've talked this deck into the mud. So
yeah.
Move on?
Yep, 39 points. Boros Monarch is our second place deck.
So this is only up a little bit from where it was last month, like 6 points up. But that means it's ahead of everything else. I think it was also, yeah, it was in second place last month as well, but it gained even more ground. I've thought of this deck as the second best deck in Pauper for a while now, and it's kind of just holding that. Like, things will have weird spikes. Like, I'm looking at the graph, and they will have weird spikes to overtake it, but it's consistently kind of fluctuating really pretty closely along with Scred.
Yeah, and I think that's got to be too, because Boros Monarch does. I don't know if it has a positive Delver matchup, but it's definitely very close to 50-50. I'm not entirely sure which one's favored, because I've heard people say that Boros Monarch is the favorite. I know in my experience, I don't lose to Boros Monarch very often. I just have, like, my spell starter sprites line up really well with all of their spells. I'm just more Scred Delver is just a lot more consistent. Boros Monarch falls into this weird, like, I guess I don't want to call it a trap, but like you just sometimes you get these hands that just don't do anything with your mana. You're just like, okay, cycle a 2-mana rock, cycle another 2-mana rock. Pass my turn. I spent my 4 mana and I drew another mana rock and something else. Okay, I'm gonna play it again, draw another random card, and you spend so much mana just spinning your wheels in the early turns of the game. I feel like it's hard for the deck to get its feet under itself, but
those are the games that it loses, is when it has to spin its wheels like that.
Yeah.
But there's also the games where later on it'll benefit from that consistency that brings.
Yeah.
And then in the early turns, it's just remove your guy again, play tap land. Now I'm gonna play my mana rock, bounce my kitty effect. I'm gonna bounce this guy, or bounce my mana rock. It's not a mana rock, filter rock. Is that a word?
Whatever it is, prophetic prism. I don't know what it is. But like, even then, I feel like when I play Scred Delver against Boros Monarch, I'm playing for the late game. Just because I know that I have better spells. Like, I'm playing with Gush and Spellstutter Sprite and Ninja the Deep Hours, and
that's interesting, because I would say that Monarch probably has the better stuff, but it's weird how much Scred Delver can actually grind like that. I guess
because, like, think about it, their removal, all of their removal, with the exception of Journey into Nowhere, I can Spellstutter Sprite very easily. Yeah. I just have a better card advantage engine. Theirs requires so much mana to get the wheels going under it, and all I need to do is cast Gush.
I guess what I'm thinking is just that the toughness on their flyers matters so much.
Sure. Them having a 2/3 is definitely relevant, but I don't know. I can still bolt it and I can still Scred it.
Yeah, that's a weird matchup that I'm still trying to figure out, and it feels 50-50, and that's why I can't figure it out of what's favored.
Yeah, and like, granted, I don't have a huge sample size to pull from. I don't know, maybe I've played against the deck 15 times, like, and I honestly haven't been tracking what my win percentage is, but I usually feel like I'm the favorite, but I know I've heard a lot of other people say that Boros is the favorite, and I just kind of don't know.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
But
you want to move on?
Yeah, let's talk about third place at 31 points, Marasa Tron. And I feel like Tron has kind of also been consistently in the third, fourth place slot recently.
Yeah, a couple months ago it was at 40 points. So last month it was at 24. Month before that it was at 41. So this has kind of been one of the more roller coastery lines on our graph. Yeah. And I think it's definitely always been a really, really strong deck. And I think it's one of the top contenders for the second best deck in the format. I'm still amazed that Pauper handles Tron lands as gracefully as we do.
Yeah, that is something that does surprise me. I don't know if I could put a finger on exactly what it is, but it just feels like Tron lands are just so much more powerful than almost anything else that happens in this format. Maybe it's just like the lack of good payoffs or the inconsistency of it, but
It's that weird tempo loss sometimes that I don't know, because they're doing powerful things with the mana.
yeah, I mean,
But
Dinrovahor is really strong.
oh yeah, but they're not even running Rovahor consistently enough to like prove that that's like what you want to be doing.
That's like the
It's just
key to the deck's success. Yeah,
I think one of the things is that it plays Muldrifter better than any other deck in the format, and Muldrifter is, I've said before, the card that makes bad decks good. Just because if you resolve a Muldrifter, you're now fighting most of the format. Like
yeah,
you have a flyer with a decent body, and those two cards just
yeah. And I mean, you put so much into assembling your Tron. There are just a lot of slots devoted to stuff that's not really that good.
yeah.
I guess like you need your filtering effects, you need to be able to get your lands, and then being able to just cast Muldrifter early and not evoking it, just like turn 3, turn 4. I've got a Muldrifter. I guess like turn 3 is probably no. You could play it on turn 3.
Yeah, you can.
Because the deck has prophetic prisms and stuff, so you could just have a natural Tron and play a prism somewhere in there and make a Muldrifter on turn 3. And then all the resources that you put into assembling your Tron and getting this mana advantage, you're now caught back up with your opponent, and you have the Muldrifter in play.
Even if you have to like turn 1 Expedition map, turn 2 crack it, turn 3 play that third Tron land, you can play that Prism and your Muldrifter, and you've drawn 4 cards that turn.
Yeah, that's pretty gross. So I do think that Marasatron is just a really powerful deck.
So
I think that it does kind of get hit by consistency issues, but
okay.
I think overall it's very powerful.
What do you think makes this deck fluctuate as much as it does? Because I'm looking here and it's really like up and down, I feel like.
Yeah. I want to look at it.
Oh, and did you see any of the Tron lists that had the new 3-mana guy that looks through the top 5 cards of your deck yet?
I haven't seen one.
Oh, okay.
Honestly, I think it's just the lack of consistency that this deck does have.
Just the weird draws.
It's good. Its good draws are really good, and its bad draws are really bad. And it's really hard, I think, for this deck when this deck's not getting Tron. I think it's really hard for it to keep up. Like its interaction isn't very great, and that's why they're resorting to playing cards like Electrickery in their main deck. But like this list that I'm looking at here, it's just got a lot of just clunky, slow cards, and this format can be really aggressive.
I suppose.
So I just think it's the inconsistency behind it. I think that a lot of people play it, and people will always play it, and it's always going to be fine. But I think you're going to lose a lot of games to yourself where you just struggle to get your feet beneath you.
I think one of the things that I want to say can affect this, like, I really want to point to a card and be like, this is better right now to support where this deck is at. And I want to say it's Pulsive Marasa with Burn getting stronger in our format. I think that's pretty safe to say, because you can cast a lot of Pulsive Marasas with this deck as long as they don't kill you super fast. And with Get2 Lava Runner, they're not doing as much non-combat damage. So I think Marasatron is one of the decks benefiting from Burn going up.
Yeah. I guess like the other thing too is Stompy is on the decline.
Oh yeah.
Like really on the decline. And last month Stompy was third place deck, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So
Second place.
second
No,
place.
third place. Third place. Yeah,
Third
you're
place?
right.
Okay.
Because Boros Monarch was 2.
Yeah, so I can see that contributing to it as well. You know, maybe one of Tron's good matchups is doing well, and so Tron's winning more. And last month, Stompy was winning a lot, and so Tron just naturally wasn't doing as well either. I think that actually might be it more than the deck consistencies, because I've honestly never played Tron, so I can't honestly speak to the consistency of the deck. But it could just be a metagame thing, and Tron just might be really meta dependent on when it can be successful and when it's less. So
Yeah, and I didn't honestly, I didn't like the answer of the deck is inconsistent, because that's a constant. The deck hasn't gotten any more or less consistent. Like, they're not all going to collectively have a good month.
Sure.
But across all of those games, there's going to be enough data that it's going to even out, law of large numbers stuff.
I think it's got to be totally just meta dependent. I think that Tron is one of the few decks in this format, now that we're talking about it, and I've thought about it more, that is very dependent on the meta game.
Yeah.
For its success. Let's see. 4th place, 28 points, Burn. So this is kind of surprising, and I will note every deck list that I looked at, as far as I can remember, did have Gitu Lava Runner in it. Some had other creatures. Some had Keldon Marauders. Some didn't. Some were just only 4 copies of Lava Runner. Some had more creatures, but the one constant was that Gitu Lava Runner was present.
Yeah, I think we just have to accept that that's the way Burn plays now. 2-1 just wasn't good enough. There was enough times where it did stone nothing, and this guy having haste and a 2 toughness body seems like the games where it does well, it does amazing. If you can't answer that card, like it doing 8 damage sometimes, like I've seen it do 8 damage. Just the ceiling on that card, I think, is just way higher, and that's kind of what I've seen over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree. 26 points for our 4th place deck, and we've got Tireless Tribe combo. I don't think this deck has fluctuated too much.
No, this has been pretty dang steady.
Yeah, I mean, it was nothing in February. It showed up in March, and since that time, it's been pretty consistent. April, it had that spike because Luis Scott Vargas played the deck in a video for Channel Fireball, and I'm gonna die on that is the reason it spiked the way it did, and now it's leveling out, and you can see how it's kind of just a consistently level.
I think that the people that want to play combo are gonna still just keep playing Tireless Tribe, and the deck is good enough that, I mean, it doesn't have any deck that I want to say that's just like, and it never wins this matchup, right?
Yeah, I mean, Tireless Tribe always has an out to win. What I've found playing it, there are some matchups that are harder than others. Like if they've got Kumbaj Witches in your deck, your life is really, really difficult. Like, really the only way to deal with them is to try to, like, if they mess up, or if you can find 2 copies of like your Inside Out. But killing Kumbaj Witches is really tough. But the deck always has a way to try to find a way to win. Yeah,
and I'm actually going to point something out. The next 3, so including Tribe, we have, is this 5th place? 5th place Tribe, 6th and 7th are Elves and Blitz. That's 3 combo decks all in a row, like within the top 8 of our meta. That's the most it's been for a very long time. So I don't know, hopefully it's not getting to the point where people are just, I'm gonna do my crazy thing. Are you gonna do your crazy thing? Oh, I did mine first. Like that would be nightmare scenario for Pauper, in my opinion. I don't want it to ever get there.
I guess sort of my thing with these 3 decks, and maybe less so Elves, but even still, These decks, unlike I feel Stompy and like Heroic, these 3 decks are very dependent on decisions and the decisions a player makes. And the games are interactive. The games do come down to player skill. There's no just I win kind of scenarios with these decks.
I mean, there are some.
I mean, there are some, but like every deck, I guess like we can go back to what you're saying about the consistencies of Tron. Like every deck will have inconsistencies. Well, every deck has I win games. Yeah, you know, but for the most part, games with these 3 decks come down to decisions and making right decisions and playing well and getting the most out of your cards. And you know, like Tribe, sometimes your opponent just has a ton of burn. A lot of times, you know, you can afford to just throw random cards away to protect your Tireless Tribe, you know, but sometimes you struggle to find a gush and you need those pieces to, you know, to keep your engine going. And if your opponent just drew 4 Screds, that's 4 cards out of your hand that you're not now using to try and win the game. And you've got to just kind of naturally draw. And so, you know, knowing when you can when you can throw a card away to protect your tribe over when you should just try to, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of decisions with these decks that some of the other non-interactive decks in this format don't have, which I think is okay.
And they're all creature based. And so there's decks at the top that have removal and counter spells, so they can always interact with our combos. You're not just playing a bunch of non-creature spells that end up winning you the game. You play something that, if they have a lightning bolt, they can put a wrench in your works. And that makes me feel more secure that we're never going to get to the point where it's just people sitting down across from each other to
flip coins.
To flip coins. That just makes me, that's not why I'm playing this game. I'm going to stop focusing so much on that. It just really bothered me when I played that tournament.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not playing Magic.
Yeah, honestly, I can't stand like Modern anymore. Like, I don't know, it's weird because I still like playing Storm. Like, Storm's still fun to play every once in a while, but like, I don't know, that's just the context of that format. And it's, I mean, less so. We're gonna have probably people who are like, no, I take my blue-white deck to F&M all the time and play against, the Mardu mid-range deck or the Jund deck, and we make tons of meaningful decisions. And it's like, well, that's because a lot of Magic players don't understand that F&M, surprise, surprise, is different than the Pro Tour or a Grand Prix or even a PQ. And people are gonna play the decks that they like to play at F&M. But when there's $150,000 on the line at this Pro Tour and the finals is decided by 2 coin flip decks, like it was this last weekend, the Clark Crane Ironworks deck versus Hollow One, it was just like, who drew more sideboard cards and who went faster? They won the Pro Tour. Like, that's not a good format.
Sorry to talk about Modern so much this episode. This is the Modern episode of our Pauper podcast.
Well, honestly, it's the reason I play Pauper. It's the reason I enjoy playing Pauper, and that I've despite the fact that I've almost completely quit playing Magic competitively. Outside of Limited, I can't remember the last PPTQ I played in that wasn't limited. Within the last year, just because I don't have fun just sitting down across from my opponents flipping coins with them. I mean, if I could keep up with Standard, I would play Standard because typically Standard is not that way. Typically Standard, there's a lot of play skill involved and metagaming involved, but I just can't afford the time or the money to keep up with Standard, so I just don't.
Okay.
And so that's why I play Pauper.
I'm going to keep this super short because I was talking about it with my coworker. Have you heard the whole debacle about the card you can only get in a buy a box promo?
Nexus of Fate?
Yeah, being super expensive and the best card in the format.
uh, yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's really funny. There was some other podcasters who, they called it a bad precedent, and they were just like, "Why you can't do this? Uh, you can't do this. You can't have a promo exclusive card because one of these days, you're going to keep pushing the power level to sell your boxes, and one of these days, you're going to print the card that breaks standard, and it's going to be $80."
Yeah, I mean,
and
Or
we're
more.
what, two? We're like two. This is the second promo, I think.
yeah.
Like they started it in the last set, and then their second promo they've already.
So all it has to do is beat what Baby Jace was to be the most expensive standard card ever, right? Like, and that's like
Jace,
120.
wasn't Jace the Mind Sculptor? Oh yeah, I guess Baby Jace was also like $120.
Yeah,
That was insane.
and like supply demand, that's not unreasonable.
Yeah, for sure. Because this card's probably less in supply than Baby Jace is or was.
Anyway, talked about modern. We've talked about money. So
Talked about standard. Welcome to the MTG Pauper Modern Standard Finance Podcast.
yeah, it's about the cost. It's also about the knowledge.
And it's about
The other
the coin
formats.
flips.
Well, let's move on.
Okay. Oh, man. Oh, heck, where were we? Oh, we were just kind of talking about Tribe, Elves, and Blitz. Do you have anything you want to say about Is It Blitz? Because I kind of want to take a small minute to talk about it.
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
Okay. So I've been known to poop on this deck, and I think I'm wrong about it.
Yeah, okay.
I think that it's a lot better than I gave it credit for. I think that in the past, I've attributed to the success of this deck solely on the fact that edicts are bad in this format. And when edicts are bad, this deck just is naturally better. But I think it just goes a little bit further than that. I think that Augur of Bolas has made this deck just pretty solidly consistent.
Aren't they playing
Even-
Delver more?
Some do. A lot do. Maybe it's like 60-40. 60% of the decks play Delver, 40% of them don't, because I've seen a mix.
Yeah,
But I
you
feel
see
like for
it
the
now.
most part, the decks do play Delver of Secrets.
Yeah,
and I
but
think
in the
that
past
is-
couple
is
months, it was zero
picking up.
Delver of Secrets. That was the accepted thing, and now the deck has shot up. It's tripled in points.
Yeah. I think that even without Delver of Secrets, I think just the addition of Augur of Bolas has made this deck good. I think
Sure.
it gives you that consistency, It kind of helps you stay alive while you're setting up your big turn where you're attacking. You have that protection against edict effects, and you can always still just play the game of, I'm not going to try to one-shot you. I'm just going to start getting in chip damage.
Which is
You know?
rare, I want to say.
Yeah, but I think that this deck is better than I've given it credit for in the past. So
But this might just be a surge. Like, I'm just going to read off, going backwards, the numbers for this deck. So starting at this month, it was 21. Before that, it was 7. So yeah, it's tripled. And then
Yeah.
before 7, it was 4, then 6, then 4, and then I lost my spot, and then it was 12.
yeah.
Okay.
So I do think that this was sort of a little bit of a surge, because I don't think that I don't know. I'm gonna say I don't think the deck is that good, but I do think it's good. And honestly, next month I wouldn't be surprised to see this deck hanging around the 12 to 15 point range.
Yeah, I was going to say 14.
I might be a little surprised if it stays over 20,
Yeah.
but I would not be surprised at all to see it around 15 points.
And this is another one of those easy decks to answer. Like,
Mhm.
just removal, like, just basic, a couple removal spells is good against this deck. Like,
Yeah.
I have to think that if you're playing this going against, like, Boros Monarch or Marasatron, there's a lot of games you're not going to win.
Mm-hmm.
but it has game against everything, like all combo decks do, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a consistent thing. This seems like a deck that's going to fluctuate.
Okay. Cool. So
Do you want to touch on elves?
I don't really have much to say about elves right now.
The one thing I want to say is that I think last month we were like going like, elves might fall back down, but it's like consistently been on the slow rise.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, elves is here. There's no board wipes to really punish it. Yeah, not a lot to say about elves other than that.
Our 8th place deck with 20 points is Blue Delver.
This is taking a dive.
Yeah, it has. I think it's weird. Maybe this is also attributed to the lack of stompy decks. Because Blue Delver sort of has a positive stompy matchup.
I thought the Scred Delver was just better though, right?
Maybe is it? Maybe I'm just confused and maybe I'm just talking out of my rear.
I think that's the case.
Oh, okay. I've
never
played Mono Blue Delver.
It feels like the Mono Blue Delver deck though just doesn't have enough removal in a more creature based combo format to do those things that it needs to.
Oh, yeah, I guess you're right. What am I thinking of that Blue Delver is the favorite in?
Scred?
Oh, yeah, maybe I'm just thinking of the mirror match. Where Blue Delver's favored in the mirror match. I don't know either. I'll be honest, I don't think Mono Blue Delver is that good of a deck.
No, I think that there's big gaps in like its defenses where it has to be, it makes up for it in speed, and that's just not good enough. I guess
it's a little more consistent than Blue Delver, but it just doesn't have the late game power. Like
I'm concerned to ask if burn being better makes this deck worse, because like I don't feel confident saying that it does, because Blue Delver of course has like 4 pyroblasts, or not, hydroblasts.
Yeah.
And then it has like big butt creatures.
Mm-hmm.
But like it has bounce spells and blockers to deal with the lava runner.
Mm-hmm.
Is that good enough? I think burn can kind of just go through that, especially if you're not running Spire Golems. And if you are, maybe they just blow them up and deal you 3 damage.
I don't know. It could be. I can certainly see the argument for burn being the favorite there, and for burn kind of being on the uprise, putting Mono Blue Delver down. That certainly makes sense to me in the context of the way those cards match up, the way you're describing it. I think.
Do you ever feel like Blue Delver still being around is like monkeys still existing even though humans exist? Like we've evolved past that point, but like that's still a working model, strategy. So they're still existing over there.
Never thought about it like that. But... I don't
comment.
I really don't know what to say about that.
Am I allowed to say that?
I don't know. We'll find out when this episode gets published.
Okay, I don't mean to offend anybody. I really don't. Like, do whatever you want with your religion. I'm not gonna. Yeah, whatever. We've gotten into weird territory. I'm cutting most of that out. Okay, Affinity.
What is this podcast, Ben?
Welcome to the strangest episode of Common Knowledge we've ever done.
This has been the most off the rails episode we've done. We've talked about modern, standard, finance,
creationism.
Religion. What do you think about the Earth being flat? Now, hear me out on this.
I just accept it as fact. If that's the way it is. I'm just kidding. I'm not a flat earther.
You're not?
No.
I'm done. I'm just kidding, guys. I'm not a flat earther either. I don't even know where we're at. Should we just call it a night? Affinity? Is that
Yep.
where we're at?
We're like halfway
14
done.
points. Was this 10th place, 11th place?
Yep.
One of those, 10th place or 11th place, is Affinity on 14 points.
Exactly where it was at last month.
Wait. 9th place. Neither 10th nor 11th. It was 9th place.
Yeah, Affinity's here. Not much to say about it.
I don't know. I'll be honest. I'm surprised that it stays over 10 points. I feel like this deck's not good.
Oh, you've never played that many 4/4s.
Yeah, I mean, I've played it against you a bunch.
You've played my weird versions of Affinity.
No, I've played the version of Affinity that we have on the Common Knowledge MTGO account.
Oh.
Just basically just a stock list Affinity.
You're bad at drawing. No, seriously. Every time we've played, you've drawn either like 14 lands or you've drawn no lands.
I just feel like, okay, maybe that's it. I don't know. I think honestly the best card in this deck is the Serpent.
No.
No?
No. People actually cut that
really?
A fair bit of the time.
Oh, okay. All right, I guess I'm just wrong.
It's really inconsistent. Like, it's either really, really good or you've never cast it.
Really, really bad. It's just stuck in your hand.
Or it's just not attacking or blocking. Like, it does nothing more than you think it would. Like, a 4/4 is pretty much just as good, but easier to cast because it's 2 mana. Which is weird to say, because Gearseeker Serpent is 2 mana as well. But, like, you're working a lot harder for your big guy. And a 4/4 is just... A 4/4 is bigger than everything in the format already.
That's not true.
Except for, like, Galvanic Blast.
We got them fishes, boy. Them stinky little fishes.
I want to say that... I don't know what's the best card in the deck. It might just be Atog. It's so obvious.
I feel like that's the worst thing about the deck. Is trying to go in on Atog.
It's the constant threat without ever actually having to do anything. And the fact that Atog can trade one of your extra lands for their creature because they were forced to block. Like, that happens a lot. And then your 4/4s get in and stuff. Like,
okay.
I guess trying to nail down what the best card in the deck is like matchup dependent, and it gets really complex. So let's actually move on. This podcast is going to go on forever.
Yeah, it's been long. Next deck, Blue-Black Alchemy with 13 points.
Yeah, this is, I think...
yeah.
This deck has found its home in, like, the top of the bottom of the meta. That makes sense.
The problem with this deck is the format is pretty fast and is punishing when you stumble. That's what I think the biggest weakness of Skred Delver is that deck can stumble on itself and just be punished really hard for it. And I think Alchemy stumbles over setting itself up a lot more. And I think that's just honestly what holds it back.
Do they just need to start playing 90 cards? Like all of them?
Gosh. Oh, gosh.
Okay.
That deck list.
And then, holy cow, dude. Next up, we have Blue-White Tron with 10 points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one sort of surprised me. I've played against this deck a couple times recently in leagues, and it's been really strong. Like, I don't know if they just had great draws the couple times I played against them, but this deck has been impressive.
There's some real power there, yeah.
Custody Squire is dumb, especially on Magic Online. That is garbage.
No, it's fine if you know how to fight it.
Oh, it's fine because it doesn't work.
Yes, it does.
And they have 2 cards of the same name, and I just have to guess which one they picked.
No.
Oh, I picked the wrong one.
You enlarge the cards with your middle mouse button, and one of them will say 1 vote, and you vote for that one.
That is the stupidest, most unintuitive thing ever. Magic Online is still dumb.
Yeah, but now we can start getting this deck down in points because of the common knowledge.
There you go. Common knowledge. Enlarge the card, right-click it, and it will say has 1 vote. That is how you can know, so that you don't give them 2 cards, because I have done that.
Next,
Mono black, 6 points.
yeah. This deck
Seems
has
fine.
really been suffering, and it's kind of starting to stabilize near the bottom of the meta again. This deck is
Yeah.
strong. Like, I wish it would go up.
What do you think it is that just keeps it down? You would think that like a deck full of good removal, like strong creatures, is it just not popular? Like what is it? Like Pestilence seems so good in this format.
Well, Pestilence isn't actually that good in mono black, and that's why they only run one. And it's like they kind of have to, or they're trying it out.
Yeah, mono black does a lot worse job of keeping creatures on the board for the Pestilence.
Yeah.
So it's just a one shot. It's basically a 4-mana Wrath. It's bigger because you cast it for 4 and then you got to put mana into it. So
I don't think we're in a really grindy part or a grindy place in the meta where mono black can thrive, and they do have a slow start.
So if they're just too slow to get going.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. So let's talk about 5th place, because this is one that's kind of surprising to me. And that is 5 points with... Did I say 5th place?
Yeah, I think you did, but we're
way
past
past 5th place. 13th place with 5 points is Stompy. This deck went from number 3 last week in the power rankings to darn near the bottom.
Yeah, and we were like big on this deck of like, no, Stompy's making a comeback. It's gonna be around to stay, and then it just.
Why? What the heck?
Yeah.
I have no idea why.
One thing I really wanted to play Stompy against Boros Monarch to, solve the question of, is Boros Monarch good against this? And I just realized something. Boros Monarch keeps being our problem deck if we don't know what's good against that deck. It's consistently the one we're like, what's this doing? What is this guy? What is this guy?
I mean, honestly, just from my experience with playing Boros Monarch, I know, again, it's not a big sample size. It was only like 3 or 4 leagues that I played with Boros Monarch. And, I was usually like 3-2, and, they're fine. But, like, I just look at this deck list and think about it, and I'm just like, how does this deck win?
It just overwhelms their opponents eventually. That's really what I see when it wins. But what I was going to say is, I wanted to face this deck more, and I finally found an opponent playing Boros Monarch, and then they played Seeker of the Way, and all of my data just went out the window because it's not a normal list, and that one card Seeker just screws Stompy so hard.
Right. That just really shifts. Like, it goes from being whatever it actually is, a 45-55 or a 48-52 to a 70-20 or a 70-30 in Boros's favor.
Like, immediately.
That's funny.
Ugh.
Maybe that's what we're going to have to do for our stuff. We'll just jam our after-show games. We'll just jam Monarch versus Stompy.
All right, yeah.
Just get to the bottom of this mystery, conundrum.
Let's get to it then. We have blue-black flicker.
I don't think this deck is good, and I think that the only reason, let me look at last blue. Where is it?
Yeah, I've never been able to get behind trying to do like an infinite combo.
Yeah, it was on like 0 points, 0 points, 4 points, 2 points, 0 points. I just don't think this deck is good at all, really. I think that Ghostly Flicker is a trap.
Yeah.
It's better than people... It's not as good as people give it credit for. It's too magical Christmas land. It's too easy for your opponents to interact with.
When you're playing a 4-mana spell, and then you want to resolve a 3-mana spell, and one of your goals is to also play counter spell to interact with what they were doing, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. Like,
the one Ghostly Flicker deck that I think is fine is Familiars. And that's because it's taken that that downside of expensive, and it's making it's mitigating that problem, right?
And
It's
Tron,
making
of course, yeah.
it's making your ghostly flicker cost 1, and Tron, just because they have such a mana advantage that they can do that.
Yeah. But in like
So
normal...
the decks that are cheating mana with ghostly flicker are the ghostly flicker decks that are good, but fair decks that are just trying to resolve ghostly flicker, I just don't think are good.
Yeah, there's one. It's this one, and it's not holding up.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've seen like people trying to do blue-red flicker. A Crixus flicker won like the Card Kingdom Rags to Riches tournament like a few weeks ago. I just don't think the cards are good. Also, I don't know that we can even talk about the Rags to Riches tournament as something viable because they go off of the paper ban list, not
really?
the MTGO ban list. Yeah, so I'm sure it doesn't make that big of a difference, but we're elitists here on Common Knowledge.
Yeah. Let's not bring up another subject.
All right, next deck. I was going to say third place. I keep looking at the points, and calling it that. So, third place with 3 points. Black White Pestilence and Bogles. It is Bogles. You know what? I'm gonna derail us again and bring up another hot topic. I'm just gonna call it Boggles.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's what everyone calls it, and that's what it's known by.
Yeah.
And I honestly am correct. I'm just gonna call it Boggles. Fight me.
Yeah, that's what I've always called it. I've only ever called it Bogles on the air.
They still call it Boggles on, like, in the Pro Tour.
Yeah, take that.
Last weekend, Pro Tour coverage, they were calling it Boggles, and people in chat were like, "What's a Boggle? It's a Bogle." And I'm like, at this point, I'm just like, it's been called Boggles for so long. I just don't know that we can change it.
Yeah. Anything to say about Pestilence and Boggles? Like, the one thing I want to say is like, yeah,
I said everything I have to say about Boggles.
Get down in the dirt, Boggles. Lose points, because I've tried playing you and you just don't work. That's like most meta decks for me, though.
I think that's the biggest thing. And it's funny because like I don't really mind Boggles too much, but like I have a huge problem with Stompy creating non-games. Boggles does this even worse.
Yeah.
You know? But Boggles is just so inconsistent. You know, if Stompy was maybe a little more inconsistent and it wasn't just such a solidly powerful deck, I might not care as much.
Yeah.
You know, but the fact that Stompy is just consistent and strong and good, and then on top of that has a bunch of hands that just lead to non-games of Magic, I just don't like that. Boggles is like, yeah, every once in a while I just lose to Boggles because they had the nut draw, but like most of the time the deck kind of falls apart on itself. You don't play it that often. I don't know.
And then I'm just going to lump Black White Pestilence in here with all of these other decks, except for one. So we've got Black White Pestilence, and then in our 2 points, we have Blue Red Flicker, Mono Green Tron, Familiars, Blue Red Midrange, Blue Black Delver, Mono Blue Delver, Mono White. I assume
this is the Mono Blue Delver Mill.
Yeah, Delver Mill.
Yeah.
So Mono White, like that weird Mono White list that was running around, I believe.
Yeah, it's just weird assortment of white creatures.
There's an M19 card in there that gives your creature +2/+0 and first strike.
Yeah.
Grixis Flicker, green white.
Did you say Slivers?
That's the one I was excluding.
Oh, whoops. Whoopsies.
So this is the first time Slivers has ever gotten any points in our system.
I'm pretty happy.
So
I love Slivers, and I love that it's gonna do fine. I'll still eat my fist if it wins the challenge.
Yeah,
but
he's 2 points closer to eating his fist.
Come on, guys! Only 49 points to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna bother talking about these decks. Like, there's such a small piece of the meta that, like, if you're really studying this format, trying to get good at it, seek those out on your own. But there's no use spending time talking about where their places in the meta is. But it's licking the boots of the other decks.
Yeah, I think that I think that if we want to talk about the meta and what you should expect to play against if you're going to play in a challenge, I would basically look at everything with like 10 points or more and like focus on those decks.
Well, which is weird because, well, look at the other ones. Most of them you don't have to worry about, but like Mono Black, Stompy, and Boggles, at least know what they are.
Oh, I guess
But
Stompy is the caveat. Stompy is the caveat this month.
Yeah, but
Because of how
it has gotten that many
oddly-
points before.
Yeah. Stompy is usually in that top echelon of decks. So
Past couple months, it was at 30, 33, 21, and then before that, it was like lower.
yeah, Stompy is a player, and you should always be aware of that deck.
Especially
Despite
in
its
leagues.
weird, inconsistent finish this week. And yeah, especially in leagues. You're going to play against it a ton in leagues.
So that's it.
Yeah, those are the power rankings.
Ba-ba.
Ba, 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 da, ba. See how good my voice is? I held that note so good. All right, that's the show. Thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget, you can do something.
Do you want me to try?
No,
You don't seem like you're feeling it this week.
not. I don't. I can do this. I can get through this outro. Oh. I'm just gonna read the list. I'm just gonna read it. It's not gonna be fun or entertaining for you guys listening. I'm just gonna read the bullets that I have. So deal with that. We have a sponsor, puremtgo.com. Articles, MTG podcasts, deck lists. They're looking for writers. Sign up right on the page. Email, commonknowledgemtg@gmail.com. Patreon, patreon.com/common knowledge. Lobbert versus Brandon videos. Stretch goal, 5-card blind. Which actually, by the way, we're closer to now.
Yeah. We had a
In
bunch
light of our most recent episode with color commentary, we had a few more people come and pledge on Patreon. So thank you guys so much for that support. And we're only $15 away from our first stretch goal of $50.
Jeez.
And we'll be able to do this tournament. So get in there.
Yay.
Yay. All right, where to find us? Twitter. You can find us on Twitter at CK Podcast. You can find me at bclark_CK. And I'll let Lobbert do these last two.
You can find me at Lobbert8 on Twitter, Lobbert, then the number 8. You can find me on YouTube. Just look for Lobbert, spelled pretty much the same way. And you can find our Facebook if you just search for Common Knowledge if you want to be notified on your Facebook feed of when the episodes are posted. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, bye.
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 Common Knowledge is part of the Constructed Criticism Network.